Hello and welcome to another episode of Adventures of a Ginger and a Blonde. This is episode 2 of Have Blog Will Likely Live Happily Ever After.
Fingers crossed. So the last episode we talked about how we met the beautiful men of our lives.
Our fellas.
Mm-hmm. And so this week, Jess, what are we going to talk about?
Well, this week we are going to look at some of our most important lessons learned by recapping some of the ugliest shit that's happened to us.
And the lessons we've learned along the way.
Because I think in the darkest moments, that's when you learn probably the most important lessons.
Gosh, that is deep. That is poetry.
That is some serious stuff.
Yeah. So let's just jump right in. So we had talked about how to kind of like handle this episode, what we want to share with you guys. We want to be real with you, and we always want to be real with you. So we thought it'd be kind of, I don't want to say fun, but to tell you real life stories about our marriages thus far.
Because as we said last week, it's a sham if you try to act like your marriage is perfect.
It ain't. And if it is, someone is giving too much. Or
someone's bitter.
Much.
They're secretly bitter.
Yeah. Someone has been poisoning the other one for a long time, hoping
Yes.
it finally takes root.
So we started really trying to go back and think about some of our darker moments as couples and what came out of those.
Yeah.
And we each found...
Do we just pick one?
We each found moments in time that we thought were worthwhile to share. And after talking to the guys, what we realized was that what we find to be our hardest moments are not necessarily the same thing on the flip side with our spouses.
Not at all. Which was so interesting. Like, I kind of wish they would have been guest speakers tonight, because we talked to them about it, and we were like, oh, we need to tell them like one of our hardest times together, and Jesse and I shared like our experiences, and they were like, really? That's
not even what I would have guessed for a second.
No, I can't believe you lost so much sleep over that. I didn't give it a second thought.
And then their perceptions of the worst moments in our marriages were things that for us weren't completely off the board, but were just not as significant.
Yeah.
So
I was like, I feel like you're being kind of a Sally about that, Ed, but what do I know?
Pick yourself up by your bootstraps.
Right? So I'll tell my story first, if that's okay.
I'd love for you to tell it.
So Ed and I had been married for about a year, and one of his good college friends was getting married, and he went to the bachelor party. And so I was in Charleston, and he was in, I think it was maybe Wisconsin. I don't really know where he was, but irrelevant. They went on a boat for the weekend and drank heavily, because that's what you do with your fraternity brothers, I guess. And
on a bachelor weekend.
And like Ed and I have this thing where we're really bad about communicating when we travel. Like, I've shared that with Jesse a lot. Like, I'm equally as guilty as he is. If he's on a work trip, like, we're texting, we're very bad about touching base on the phone, because I hate talking on the phone. I hate it. Don't call me, anybody.
We know that.
And so, one night, I hadn't really heard from Ed a lot, and I was like, well, that's fine. He's having fun with his boys. I was trying to be cool.
Don't
worry.
I'm
a very jealous female anyway, just because I am who I am. You know? I got a lot of insecurities in my soul, so I'm trying to work through that. But it was really late, and I get a phone call from Ed, and I was like, oh gosh, no. I knew something bad was happening.
Why else would he call me so late?
I was like, it is 11:30 on a Saturday night. What do you think I'm doing?
Reading and sitting in a bathtub.
Gosh, I'm reading a murder novel. And so Ed calls. He's like, and at this point, this was years ago, mind you, our first year of marriage, but Ed is like pretty tipsy. And you can tell when someone's voice.
Oh, you know. Everyone has their own. They have a drinking voice.
They have a tell-all, and Ed had his drinking voice on. He was like, I got some bad news. And I was like, you better not say some shit that is just gonna set me off.
Do not come at me with anything.
And he's like, I lost my wedding ring. And in that moment, he may have said that. What I heard, there were strippers that came on the boat. I had baby oil on my hands. As I was dancing with a stripper, throwing my hands in the air, because that's his move, my ring flew off, or I threw it off, and nobody knows I'm actually a married man.
You read a lot into that, yeah.
It makes perfect sense why I thought that much. And
no other girl has ever done that.
No. And I was like, well, then it sounds like you're single and I'm single. So we gave it a good run. We had a year of semi-marital bliss, but go ahead and don't call me. And he's like, Ashley, I don't know why you're acting like this. We looked for the ring, and like his friends were in the background. They're like, we looked for an hour in the water, and I was like, oh, I bet you did. Did Cinnamon, the stripper, help you look for the ring? And it was just, I know it was irrational, but I went to bed. I didn't even sleep that night because I was so mad, and I really thought it was like the end of our marriage.
Which sounds dramatic, but truthfully, that is such a scary moment, right?
Oh my gosh. And that was probably one of the biggest fights we'd ever, and by fights, I mean I got pissed, and Ed was just
lost
trying to have
in
fun
translation.
And I really feel like I kind of ruined the rest of his weekend because I was so mad, and I was like, don't call me ever again. Good luck finding a ride home from the airport, and all your stuff is going to be gone by tomorrow. And by that, I mean me and my stuff. And I remember calling my sisters, and they were like really trying to talk me off the ledge. Like, isn't that, it's Ed. I don't think he was dancing with a stripper. I mean, probably not.
Well, and if he was, he probably was telling the stripper Cinnamon all about his wife Ashley and how beautiful he thought she was.
Who also had red hair.
Because it's really all he can talk about is how much he loves you.
Which makes sense also. But I'm kidding. But so when he came home, we essentially really talked it out. And it was like one of those just lessons. Like, you react a certain way when you're not face to face with each other. And I don't know, really talking it out. And him understanding like where my insecurities have come from with, you know, feeling a certain way, and him like approaching it differently. But then we also talked about how important it was that he was honest with me right from the start. He's like, would you have preferred I would have hidden that from you and come home and bought a ring that looked like my old ring?
Which would have really been worse.
Yeah. So, but it really was a lessons learned, like to learn how to communicate better when we're apart. To maybe be more responsible with our things.
But I also think, like, what I hear when you tell that story is how quickly we all make assumptions.
Knee-jerk reactions to each other, and how unfair it is.
So.
Yeah. That was, I guess my advice in that scenario would be to not go to the darkest place in your mind. Because as females, I feel like we do that often, or just anyone in a relationship. Like you.
Well, we do it in most every aspect of our life, so it makes sense we would do it in our relationships too.
So don't do that, and maybe say, "Well, that really sucks. We'll talk about it when you get home."
Until then, stop touching Cinnamon.
Until then, hands to yourself, big boy. Oh, Jesse, tell us your story. Yes. These are real life stories, guys. We can't make this shit up.
Well, and the other thing, a little bit of a side note, that we also talked about when trying to come up with what we wanted to share and tell, was that some of our ugliest moments came at the very beginning of our marriage. And it doesn't mean it was the hardest moments, because we've had really, really, really deep valleys since then. But the ugliest moments where we were the most brutal with each other was early on.
And I think it's because you're still trying to navigate and figure out how the other person ticks and why they would ever choose to say that, do that, act like that. Like, I think in the beginning, you're just really, I mean, you're supposed to be all in with this person that you really haven't known that long.
Yeah. Well, for me, so just a little bit of a preface on the story. Tyler and I got married, and after a month of being married, he left and went to South Korea for a year. So our whole first year of marriage was basically
Long
separated by the
distance.
whole world. So that was a whole different struggle. But so this event took place in our first year of marriage, actually living under one roof. So we moved to Charleston as soon as he got home from South Korea, and that kind of began the first year of marriage that we consider like, well, I guess they were both learning, but for different reasons.
Living together, learning.
And so we lived in this townhouse in North Charleston, vertical living.
Beautiful place.
And so our bedroom was on the 3rd floor. The guest bedroom was on the 1st floor.
Their booties were very tight from those walks.
Yes. All of that information will come in later. But so I didn't have a job yet. Tyler immediately had a job he had to report to because he was in the Air Force. And so I was just desperate to like be with people. And that's not a good justification for all of the things I do. But we had met a few people and they invited us out on a Friday evening, and I really wanted to go.
Well, yeah, you're a social bug.
But I didn't have any like real friends yet, so I was all about like, these people have invited us out, we need to go. And on the flip side, he had been at work all week and was really tired and in a new place. We were still moving in, and like, so he didn't want to go. But all I could think was, are you freaking kidding me? You're trying to keep me, because I'm supposed to do what you do. You're trying to keep me from being with potential friends.
Yeah. Like,
and having my adult time. Yeah, having my adult time. Like, screw you. And so he came home. He didn't want to keep the plans with the people that had invited us out. And I was like, well, that's not happening. I'm going.
I ain't no flake.
Right. And so I went out. We got into an argument. I went out anyway with this group, which was a mixed group. It wasn't just like all girls and all guys either way, but it was a mixed group of people, which is not a huge issue between the two of us. That's never a big deal. He's not like a jealous person, but he stayed home. And so I went out and I drank, and I came home having been drinking.
Let us also preface, alcohol never makes tension better.
It does not help, y'all. It does not help. It's not something where I've decided I'm going to give it up my whole life, but it does not help in these situations.
If there are hostile moments, do not pick up a bottle, ever.
Well, to hit him on the head or to drink.
If you're going to choose one or the other, we say drink it.
But I came home after having spent the evening out drinking. He, on the other hand, was sober as a judge and was probably still irritated by me. And truthfully, I don't remember what started the argument again when I got home, because I have a terrible memory. I just know that it escalated quickly, and I felt like everything was his fault. But you also should know I have horrible issues with pride, and that's been something I've had to work on over the years. So everything is always Tyler's fault in my mind, and I've had to work on that. So I don't exactly remember what started it. It was probably something I said, truthfully. Because
looking back now,
I'm kind of a snide bee sometimes, but so a fight started, and it was late in the evening, obviously. And so we had this whole run around where I thought I was making sense. He was countering with all kinds of sober statements. I decided I was going to go to bed. I went upstairs, and he did not follow me.
Oof. Tyler.
He just sat back down and continued to watch TV.
Gosh.
Shame on him for giving me space.
Shame. Yeah.
And so
You think you want it.
Right. I did the thing that I don't think just women do this. I think people in relationships do this.
Ed can talk me to death.
It could be attention seeking. I don't know. But I went upstairs, went to bed. He didn't follow me, and that made me mad. So I walked downstairs indignant and was like, are you seriously going to stay down here and not finish this conversation with me?
He's like, I thought you were asleep.
Yeah.
Go back to bed, you psycho.
And so it just went off from there. And one thing to interject and say is that we have different fighting styles. So like Tyler and I our hearing is absolutely horrible.
Oh my gosh, as in we, like Ed and I compared to you and Tyler.
Yes, I'm sorry. And I guess I say that only to say that Tyler and I are very loud fighters because we can't hear one another. Like for him, his hearing left when he worked on the flight line for 8 years. Mine, I feel like it's partially genetics, maybe also being involved in music and lots of loud speakers, but either way, we can't hear each other very well. So when we fight, we are that loud couple.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, Ed and Ashley whisper.
Yeah, like it's
an incredible talent.
Ed and I were talking about it. It's like if you watch a bad Japanese movie where like their lips are moving, and we're just whispering at each other. I'm like, I will kill you if you don't stop singing now. We will handle this later.
Tyler
but
and
it's very obvious that we're fighting, but it's also very obvious when Jesse and Tyler are fighting.
Yes, and Tyler and I are always so embarrassed because we're like, everyone can hear what we're saying, whereas with Ed and Ashley, you maybe know there's something going on, but you can't hear it, so you don't feel as involved. And Tyler and I are just sorry that everyone has to be part of our arguing.
But I do feel like we've gotten to a point now where we know exactly what we're saying. On all accounts. Because I'm going to tell you.
That's true. So true.
But anyway.
So I came down. I escalated the fight because he didn't follow me. At which point, then it went next level because at this point in time, it's probably 2:00 in the morning. And so when we have talked about before about one of the best bits of advice we've ever gotten would be to leave it alone and go to bed angry.
Yes.
And wake up and finish it in the morning. This is where this comes from.
This is where it really stemmed from.
Because we were striving so hard to settle a fight that was not going to get settled. Mm-hmm. I was intoxicated. He was not. We didn't even know what we were fighting about at that point. No. We were just mad.
And you're tired.
Yes. And we just needed to go to sleep and figure it out in the morning, but we just went after it. And so it's like 2:00, and so I was like, yeah, I'm going to sleep in the guest room.
Ooh.
Yeah, and so I went down there, and that really ticked him off because he and I both have always kind of been on the same page where we want to remain in the same bed.
Go to bed angry with like a butt to butt.
But like bed in the same, in the same bed.
That's what I'm saying. Like his booty can be up against your booty. You don't even have to look at each other.
So that's a very hurtful thing for both of us. Yeah. If you go to bed, if you're trying to go to bed in the guest bed. Yeah. That's very hurtful. So I was like, I'm going to bed the best in the guest bed.
You were trying to get him in the jugular.
I was really trying to get him. Mm-hmm. And so I went downstairs and all the lights are off in the house. And I go down there and Tyler, this is a rented home, FYI.
Why?
And Tyler would, to say this, he would never lay a hand on me. Never once have I felt threatened that he would lay a hand on me. But he, at this point, now we're probably at 2:30, 3:00 in the morning. I'm in the guest bed, and he comes down, and he's like, are you seriously staying down here? And I'm like, yes, I am. I'm an independent woman.
I'm proving my point by sleeping on this hard bed.
I'm going to sleep in this bed that's not comfortable because I'm so mad at you.
Don't even come down here.
And it just went off, y'all. And honestly, Tyler, I love you so much if you're listening. But
you better be listening.
But he punched a hole straight in the guest wall of that bedroom.
Yep.
And in that moment, the fight actually ceased. To be truth be told, because we were both like, no, I wasn't scared. I was pissed off. I was like, are you kidding me? We're literally
gonna have to pay for that.
The words that came out of my mouth, I said, are you kidding me? We have to fix the wall. We don't own this house.
And by we, you mean Tyler.
And you could tell in the moment that he did it, he also felt 100% remorseful. Like, I'm not kidding, fighting ceased. And we both were just like, oh, no.
Did you sleep in the guest room?
No, I didn't. I went upstairs, and we were like, we'll fix the wall tomorrow. And we got up, and sure enough, we got a patch kit, and we fixed the wall, and they had paint. We fixed it. Man. But that was it was a scary moment, but not because I was scared for myself.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Tyler's never scared me for myself. It was just like, it was so intense.
Mm-hmm. Well, and also, like, shows you how quickly things can, like, escalate if you keep going at each other.
It was intense and irrational. And had we gone to bed when I got home and we'd gotten up in the morning and talked about it, it would have been a different story.
Yeah. Well, and tonight we talked about how stupid it is that so many married couples fight to win instead of fighting to learn something. Not that you fight to learn something, but every argument you can come out on the other side like, I'm honestly glad that we talked this through. Now I see where you're coming from. Now I hear you out. Like,
well, I think that's a good point, because then that kind of goes into like the most important things we've learned, which, like you said, would be to use those ugly moments as learning experiences, because if one person is out to win and another person to lose, the couple loses.
You're never gonna make it. And we've had so many good times with our husbands, and they really are our best friends. And looking back at these like huge fights, we can almost laugh about them now, because it's like,
absolutely,
it seems so silly how upset we allowed
well,
ourselves
especially when you don't even remember what you were necessarily arguing about.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the other thing we've learned, or at least we've discussed, would be that in those moments, probably one of the most important things you could do would be to not threaten the end.
Yes.
I feel like so many couples do that. When things get really ugly, they threaten divorce, and they use that word, and they say they're done, and like...
Or you physically leave.
Well, and everyone needs space. I'm not necessarily like...
I'm talking like get in your car, be like, I'm leaving, I'm not coming back.
No.
The threat's there. And I don't know. I think that breeds more insecurity. And also threatening divorce or threatening breakups. Or even using like the whole, you always do this, or you never, don't do that.
Well, you can't use absolutes because they're never true.
I just used one. Absolutely incorrect.
They're not accurate. You don't always do something or never do something. So don't use those against people that you care about. And then also just the idea that if you're trying to scare the person you want to be with forever by telling them you want a divorce, like, what are you accomplishing?
Right. And also, that's not going to work.
Well, and then also maybe you got into it for the wrong reason. Because maybe I don't know, some people quit so easy in those moments. And I think
so. Had I given up when Cinnamon came into our lives,
oh my God,
who knows where we'd be?
Or
I'm totally kidding. I don't know that there was a Cinnamon involved in that whole scenario.
Yeah, we don't know. We just made it up.
Yeah.
Or if I had just decided to continue sleeping in the guest room.
If you would have taken that wall punch as, it's time to go now.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know. I think you punch a wall and I'm sitting there and I'm verbally assaulting you with every mean thing I can think of. It's basically like I'm punching a hole in a wall.
Absolutely.
Maybe it's better to punch a hole in a wall. I don't know.
I just punched a hole in your heart.
Because I'm nasty when I'm mad.
Yeah, same, girl. I got a fiery little tongue.
So I think it's all about giving each other grace and using those really ugly moments and remembering that they're not the end. They're teachable moments. Yes. We always talk about that at school. Like, look for a teachable moment. And I think those are always really good for that.
Absolutely. So we'd like to hear some of your teachable moments. But seriously, tell us about them. It doesn't have to be the full story about, the nitty gritty. But maybe like, what are one of the best lessons you've learned thus far in, I don't know, a season of difficulty in your relationship or...
I don't think it matters whether you've been married 20 years or 5. I mean, obviously, I think there's wisdom to be gained, but I think there's struggles at every season of your life.
Yep, for sure.
So,
tell us. Share the details.
So, on that note, I think that kind of wraps up this episode.
Marriage is fun.
We've shared some ugly stuff with you guys. We've opened it up a little bit.
There's more where that came from.
Yeah, we got a lot of ugly shit, so.
Also some very sweet things.
Lots of sweet.
Maybe we'll come back with that.
I would say 90% sweet, 10%.
I'd say. We're really going to try and get the husbands on one of these podcasts.
You guys would enjoy that, I think.
Because they're wise. I mean, Ed could talk our ears off, so we got to put a limit on that. But
and a cap on it.
Yeah, but thanks for tuning in, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed another episode of how Blog will likely live happily ever after. No. Because we work our asses off.
That's right. Ginger and the Blonde over and out. Peace.
Peace out.